flag salute, led by Treasurer Ron Croson. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the planning board meeting of January 28th, 2013. Just a reminder, if there's an emergency, we exit to the nearest exit. In this case, it's at the back door, that's blocked. The other exit at the opposite end of the building. Go to your vehicles. Please do not leave until so directed by emergency service personnel. If you are a smoker, this is a non-smoking building, and you must go outside to do that. We'll start.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, and Happy New Year to everybody, as I wasn't here last meeting. First, we have the board minutes of the January 14, 2013 meeting.
Motion to accept is presented.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any changes, deletions, additions? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
Secondly, request approval to accept the 2012-2013 report of the receiver of taxes as presented.
Motion to accept is presented.
Motion.
Second. Second. Questions, additions, deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
Next, request approval to set tax grievance day for Tuesday, February 19, 2013, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Motion. Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
And lastly, request approval to set tax sale day for Thursday, February 28, 2013, at 10 a.m.
Motion. Motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. For the treasurer. Croson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be real brief. Bills for the short period of January 25th and 28th were $397,576.57. A little bit less than last time. Number one of the five largest, New York State Employee Health, $108,643.35 monthly premium. H2M for engineering fees, mainly for the pump station. A couple of smaller ones, $18,168.17. We'll take that out of key money.
Key money also.
Surplus.
If the portion that's from the pump station is being funded by the town of Brookhaven.
Thank you, Town of
Yes.
Global Monticello, $11,805.16 diesel fuel. And Paul Feuer, legal services for about 3 months, $9,600. And that totals $163,258.11. I can have approval?
Motion to accept is presented.
Motion.
Any questions? Additions, seconds?
Second.
All in favor?
I just want to make a comment for the record. I had asked the company to come in and look at our wireless bills, and they came in, and I just wanted to thank Emily Gaddy, who works in my office. They reviewed them, and they said there's no way you can say there's anything. She stays on top of it, she looks for the best deals we can get, and I just wanted to commend her for that, so I wanted you to know that.
Thank you. Okay, public hearings.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing be held on Monday, January 28, 2013, 6 p.m., 14 Baker Street, Patchogue, New York, by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Patchogue, to amend Chapter 210 of the Village Code to reflect changes in FEMA regulations, a copy of which proposed local law is on file at the Office of the Village Clerk. At said public hearing, any person interested will be given the opportunity to be heard.
This section of the code, chapter 210, has been on the books since 1998.
Matter of fact, as I'm looking at 1998, originally 1968. Chapter 49, 1968 originally.
And it's required by FEMA
Correct.
to be taken as presented.
Be a participating community in flood insurance.
Give us some background.
This is, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. This is the flood damage prevention section. This section has been, again, a part of our code since 1968. On occasion, FEMA does make changes to this, and what they recommend is that just because the village not pick and choose, they want the entire chapter adopted, and then unadopted, and re-adopt a new chapter. The language is taken directly from the federal government with regard to this flood damage prevention. I've compared it to the existing section. There are not dramatic changes at all. A lot of them are just some changes on flood code designations as they've updated AO, AH, VO zones, their map rating issues, and area of special flood concerns. They just expanded them to A1, A30, A99s, V1, V30s. They just changed some certain federal terminology with regard to the program.
This is required by FEMA,
Correct.
and if we don't adopt, the consequences.
The consequence of not adopting it is that, you know, I mean, we've had it before, but the consequence of not adopting is what's called as FEMA sanctions the community. The first sanction is they suspend the federal insurance ability for the village to any residents to participate in the flood insurance program. It's not something you want to have happen, because then if that happens, then mortgages don't get written because we don't get flood insurance. So it would have a dramatic effect. If we didn't adopt it, it really is not much of a consequential change in changing this chapter from the previous chapter.
Questions by the board?
Brian, you want to just go over the substance of the requirement?
Well, flood damage prevention, it's a big chapter, but it talks, what this requires is when there are when certain things happen, it sets out what the structure standards need to be. If new construction would be subject to this section. If your property is damaged, substantially damaged, as defined by the code, that definition is not changed from the original enactment. And that's if your property is damaged 50% or more of the fair market value before the storm, your reconstruction effort must be subject to this flood damage prevention measures. Meaning that if you have obviously a $200,000 house, just before the storm, you have $100,000 in damage, you would be required to reconstruct your home to these standards. If you were going to make a substantial reconstruction, meaning if you were going to change the value of your home by an addition of 50% or more, put a second floor on, put an addition on, that would be subject, and a new construction would be subject to the flood damage prevention controls as well. Existing homes that did not fit into either one of those two categories, or three categories, would not be subject to this chapter.
And it only pertains to those homes that are
And it only pertains to those homes within the
and
flood zone.
businesses
Correct.
that are in the flood zones.
Correct.
Question by the public? Yes, sir.
Okay, George Yule, 51 Market Street. The way I read that is if I have a house on the river,
George, please come up to the microphone so we can.
George Yule, 51 Marvin Street, Patchogue. The way I understand this is if I have a house on the river that is subject to flooding, that if I don't do anything to it, I will be covered. Is that correct? By FEMA?
If you have flood insurance,
If I have flood insurance, it's a
and you're not over the 50% threshold,
Right.
and your premium is current, yes, you would continue to have flood insurance, correct?
Now, what if I'm gonna build an entirely new structure?
You would have to build it in accordance with the flood damage prevention measures in this chapter.
Okay, now, they set a height restriction, correct? Is that 8 feet?
They set a base flood elevation, you mean?
Well, what is the base flood elevation along the river?
It depends, because it changes.
Okay.
It depends on how close you are to the bay as the flood elevation changes throughout the village.
At any given point, we'll take it from on the waterfront up to, we'll say, just north of Mulford.
I'm not sure specifically what it is. On the west side, east side?
East side, west side, doesn't make any difference.
It
The river's
changes
the same.
because of the height. Yeah, it's actually, the flood map, as I understand it, I'm not an expert on it,
Okay,
but the flood map, as I understand it, changes because the height on the river on the west side is a
it's
little bit
high,
high. Yeah.
right, yes, I understand. Now, let's talk about the east side.
Well, you could come in and take a look at the flood map because it actually changes from place to place. It could be as high as 7 or 8 feet.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up, okay, is because a certain individual that owns the Orr house, or the Orr, okay, also owns property at the end of Mulford. Approximately 10 years ago, or 10 months ago, he applied to build a condo, and it was denied. okay? Follow my train of thought. Now, it smacks like, hey, we're doing this to accommodate somebody
This,
to build a new condo.
no, George, excuse me.
Excuse
This-
me.
No, excuse me. This piece of legislation does not reflect that.
Correct.
This
This is
piece
not
of
the height,
legislation-
that's the next one.
The next public hearing
Okay,
is
all
what we're
right.
talking about.
Then I stand corrected,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Just to be-
I'll be
just to
back.
really
We'll see you for, we'll see you for part 2.
Just to be really clear, and the simplest and most important part of this legislation is you cannot build habitable space that people live in, under FEMA regulations, that are less than 2 feet above the 100-year high water mark from a flood. That's gonna vary from probably 8 feet at the river, and I'm guessing, up to 6 inches on West Avenue, okay? And there are a couple of flood maps out that show you what the 100-year flood zone is. At the river, it's obviously deeper, the land slopes up a little bit, sometimes it goes down again. And then there's a 500-year flood map, okay? And so that, the answer to that question is how high does habitable space have to be, is variable all over the flood zone. But the FEMA rule says you cannot have places where people live within 2 feet of that high water mark. Sandy was 4 to 5 feet of flood, about 7 feet above sea level.
The biggest piece of this legislation is to protect, 1 second, sir. The biggest piece of this piece of legislation is to protect the property owners within the flood zone, to be able to allow them to continue to have the required flood insurance to protect your homes. We do not pass this piece of legislation, your ability to get flood insurance tremendously diminished, and you would have to go to the private market, which is you live in.
Doesn't sell it.
Doesn't sell, right, so, you know, we can talk all the way around this. 1 second. We can talk all the way around this, any which way we want to talk it. But FEMA requires this piece of legislation. The clerk, please come up.
I can do it from here. Would you just ask the clerk to reread the call for this public hearing? What is it that you are asking at this public hearing?
To amend Chapter 210 of the Village Code to reflect changes in FEMA regulation.
Okay. That's it.
Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Wagner. I live on the corner of Brightwood and Beach. Somebody told me, one of the contractors that's lived in Carol's house, told me that the new flood level was 8 feet. And it reflected a pin that was on a pole at the corner of Cedar and Brightwood, on the east side of Cedar.
That I couldn't tell you, but if you come by here tomorrow, I'll have the FEMA maps. And
So we could combine and look it up.
Go to the building department, and they'll be able to show you the maps and show you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm Joan Porta, 29 Maiden Lane. Which our house was severely affected structurally. And it seems that you go round and round and you get different answers from different people, and we have flood insurance, but to bring it up to the FEMA standards, we also have 2 root cellars that under FEMA standards are supposed to be filled in. We're just hearing about that now. And I know you go like this, like, I don't know. Well, I mean, as we're an incorporated village and we are a seaside community, that I would hope that as a village that we could get some information out to the people that are impacted by this, because it affects you also, and your long-range plan for this town, and real estate, and there's not enough information. and I don't see any meetings, and I've gone to FEMA in Lindenhurst, but I was hoping that, the village would embrace their own community and get some sort of mailing out or something, because actually, if, say, you are not in compliance with FEMA, which a lot of people don't even know anything about that.
Right after the storm, we had people in here for almost a week, and we went to every home on the south end.
I understand that for a week, but I'll tell you, we didn't have heat, electric, hot water. Everybody was running in every different, we were sitting on the lines at the gas station, that's where we were, to try and keep the sump pumps going, to keep the generator going. But, as it's 3 months, it's evolved. It looked like one thing in the beginning, right at the very beginning, just clean up your property, get it fixed. But it has evolved, and this is a really big situation. If people do not, if they have multiple claims in on their flood insurance, and they don't come into compliance with FEMA, then they could be paying $10,000 flood insurance a year. And if you do bring your home into compliance, like I could never raise my house, I was told to be well over $100,000. My insurance company will not pay for that, and they won't pay to fill my basement in with cement, because we were thinking maybe that would be an option. This is still evolving, and it's not going to disappear. And people are doing things and making decisions without even knowing. Even the contractors who come in and look, they don't know what the village is saying for, I didn't know if you guys were gonna make it higher than FEMA's or the same as FEMA's or whatever. And most people don't know what their flood elevation is, and they should. But they're busy taking care of their kids, they're busy working, they're busy doing whatever, that I would hope as an incorporated village that we would have something here or someone here, meetings or whatever, or letters to send out to the community to tell them, hey, you better pay attention to what you're doing to your house and what's going on. Because if people start getting slapped with $10,000 flood insurance, guess what? I know I'm gonna lose my house. So there's a lot of people, they don't know, okay, my flood insurance isn't going to pay to raise my house. And FEMA's not giving me the money because I have flood insurance. And the ridiculous whole thing is that whether I have flood insurance that I pay with my check to travelers, is that the money comes from FEMA anyway. Just because I write my check to travelers, it's FEMA who's going to pay for the cost of it. So there's a lot that people don't know, and hopefully maybe we could send something out to these people who live in the AE6 or AE whatever, saying, listen, a lot's going on. We need to, get together here. So thanks.
We'll say, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
How would a post to a house that was in the flood zone but was not? That's
Is it different?
yeah.
Bernie Sheepman. I live on Wiggins Avenue, and I'm against this thing because I don't care what you say for what the height of the water is going to be. What is the height you are going to raise the structures by? Up to what?
Bernie, that's the next hearing. This first hearing is just on the FEMA regulations as they relate
I'll be
to
back.
chapter 210. The next one, we'll talk about building.
I'll be back.
Don't go away, I know you will. What to? Yes, young lady.
Can I ask, what if you live in flood zone A? I live on Maiden Lane and.
Approach the
You
microphone.
gotta say your name
Oh.
and your address.
Oh. FEMA Solid 35 Maiden Lane. We bought the house and moved in 10 days before the storm, myself and present. We were very fortunate. We have really no damage, but we're in one of the worst flood zones that there is, I guess. We're so close to the bay. So what does that mean if you were in that flood zone, but your house is not damaged? How does FEMA address that?
The FEMA, as the last speaker said too, the FEMA process, that's kind of beyond the village. You know, we're the lowest totem pole. We have no control over FEMA, how they're doing it, whether they're gonna have mitigation grants, which is one of the possibilities too, whether there are low interest SBA loans. Those are all things that we have no control over, that are done at the federal level. This code is no change from 1998 in that it's exactly the same. In that it only, this only controls these new elevation requirements, only when you fall into those three categories: new construction, substantial damage, or substantial improvement. If you don't fall into one of those three categories, this chapter won't apply to you.
So everything is status quo?
From the village's code standpoint, yes. What it will do with the FEMA, whether FEMA decides to change their insurance rates or premiums based on height, I have those same concerns about my own property. I don't know.
Ms. Walker?
Good evening. Pamela Barr, 177 Cedar Avenue, Patchogue. And with that alone. This is the document that we're currently working on, the amendment of Chapter 210?
Yep.
Okay. What is the deadline by which FEMA says that this has to be?
We're not under a strict deadline because we've had it since 1968, and this is just changing it from 1998. So these are just amendments that we need to approve. If we didn't have these already, we'd be in overtime.
So all of this language is existing, or all of this language is new language?
Well, from a legal standpoint, all of this is going to be new. Everything that's underlined is going to be new because we're repealing the entire chapter, taking it out, and reinserting this as the new chapter.
Okay. You have a notation here that says new language to replace existing language is underlined, and that language to be deleted is X through.
Correct.
Okay. In 29 pages, there's not one line that is X through.
Correct. Well, because like I said, we're taking out the entire chapter, so it's not going to be existing. We're going to be putting in an entire new chapter. That was the FEMA federal lawyer's recommendation to the village. Don't go through line by line to try to find what little changes were made based
So
on.
there's no sense in having the village code next to this?
Oh, you could, and I did, and I went through 95, 97% of this to see what those changes were. My major point was the new and substantial. If FEMA, my concern was if FEMA was going to be expanding their reach of this, and since 99.9% of it is based upon those three categories, that was pretty much where my evaluation ended. It was 90, and as the FEMA attorneys told us, this is 99.9% exactly the same.
Okay. And there is no deadline from FEMA for you to approve this?
No, because we already have it existing. It continues, it continued through the storm, it continued afterwards, and it continued today until this board adopts this chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Paul, just to pick up on something that the young lady said over
Microphone.
here.
Would you come up front, please?
You know, just to pick up something that was said here about, nobody knows their height on their property. There are maps out there, and it was, when the Sandy struck, there was went on to Patchogue Patch, I guess it was, and they showed the different zones. But now you gotta be a wizard to figure out, okay, where am I on that zone? Wouldn't it be just as easy to put on the village website where, and if you live on Marvin Street, 51, I'm 8 feet above sea level, that I know, all right? But the house next to me could be 9.5 feet. They have that information, it's in the base. Can't they put it on the village website for the flood zones A, B, and C? So you go onto the website and say, oh, they're full of crap, I don't need it. Or, oh my God, I'm deep.
Okay. Thank you.
all right? It's just something that would appease a lot of people and
Yep.
make it easier for them. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor, Dennis Ross, 32 West Main. Using the term substantial improvement, is there a percentage or dollar value attached to that? And how does it affect also commercial property? Is it the same percentage? What is substantial improvement?
Just before you walked in, I gave that definition, just before.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Just
I
before.
apologize.
Yeah, I'll give it again.
Thank you.
The definition is,
But is there a percentage?
yes,
Okay.
again, just in case you're following along in the audience, Pam, page 8. Substantial damage is defined as damage of any origin sustained by a structure whereby the cost of restoring the
No,
structure.
I'm sorry, sir. I heard that part.
Oh.
Substantial improvements.
Yep. Substantial improvement means any reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, or other improvement of a structure, the cost of which equals or exceeds 50% of the market value of the structure before the start of construction of the improvement.
Okay. Is that, you know, that like both residential and commercial? Is there not a difference?
Yeah, it would be applicable to any structure within the flood zone, yes.
That's it.
It wouldn't be a
So the
distinction.
criteria does not change between the two. Okay. And if if the village doesn't adopt this, will this affect future sales? We're not gonna be able to get insurance on future homes? Is that
Yes.
how am I reading this?
Yes.
I understand? Thank you for your time.
Any other questions? No.
Bruce Bourget, 42 Maiden Lane. There's two clauses you can have. You can have a substantial damage clause or repetitive damage clause. Is there any reason why we don't do the repetitive damage clause?
That wasn't a recommendation to us by the feds.
Yeah.
We've had the substantial damage and substantial improvement since 1998.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to look at language and consider it.
The repetitive damage clause is a lower threshold. It's a 25% in over 2 years.
I guess my question first, and stay here for a second, just, if we add that, can we add that into this piece of legislation that was drafted by FEMA?
I'd have to evaluate that with the FEMA lawyers, because what my concern is, their concern to me was if we start to modify their language in this code in any way, we don't want to have unintended consequences of jeopardizing flood insurance.
No, I understand that, but what I understand is the community gets the flood insurance policy or is overseen by FEMA. And when they do that for your community, you can either pick repetitive damage clause or a substantial damage clause. And one is a repetitive damage 2 years where you have 25% damage on your building, and then you qualify for certain things. Or you have a substantial damage clause where you have 50% damage. And from what I understand, most communities don't have the repetitive damage clause because there's a bit of paperwork involved. But if you're in a low-lying area, where the South Shore is, it's an easier threshold to accomplish, especially 2 years in a row with hurricanes, to get the repetitive damage. But as I spoke to people about that, there are not a lot of communities that do that. You can pick, but I believe there's a bit of paperwork involved in the repetitive damage clause. And so maybe you could look into that and see what the situation is on it.
All right, happy to do that.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Powers, 252 Bay Avenue. I was wondering if it's all possible. I know I asked for the trustee packs before each meeting, but it would be at all possible if we're just maybe making 10 copies up, and when we come in, people can just pick them up. I'm stuck paying a FOIL fee every time I come in to get them. It just helps the community follow along as the meeting's going along. Pam Barr was the only one to be able to get a copy because they never had a chance to make additional copies. I don't know if that's something you would entertain or not.
Those people go
Are you
that way.
speaking to public hearings? Because that's always available. The
Well,
public hearing
this
portion-
is the public notice that was here, this is the changes to this.
Correct, but
this
that,
code.
any proposed legislation is available for free. That's not even political.
So did I pay for this when I came in?
Because the request came through as the trustee packet, which that was a part of.
Right,
So I wasn't gonna differentiate what you wanted and what you didn't
so you
want.
figure you just,
I gave you the trustee package.
well, my
But
point
the-
being is that the village can make an election just to make up certain trustees packages and just have them available to the public when they come in. It's just about having open discussions fair. It makes it easier for this.
Okay, that's.
I mean, nobody here has this. They can't follow along.
That's
my
available,
point.
correct?
I just said that,
Yeah,
yes. Yes.
that's available, Greg.
Yeah, but most people are not gonna come in beforehand to pick one up at the village clerk's office. If it was here available, if they made 10 copies, then people could just sit down with them. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept as presented? Second?
Second.
In favor?
All right.
It's okay.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing be held on Monday, January 28, 2013, 6 p.m., 14 Baker Street, Patchogue, New York, by the Village Board of the Incorporated Village of Patchogue to amend Chapter 435 of Village Code, amending the definition of the height of the building, and to amend the height restriction in the industrial district from 45 feet to 60 feet, a copy of which proposed local law is on file at the office of the village clerk. At said public hearing, any person interested will be given the opportunity to be heard.
Okay. I'd like to ask trustee Fur, please make comment to this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow trustees, and your fellow residents, and thanks for all your input. We had consultation with the zoning board, the planning board, and we certainly heard from many of you about what was published with regard to this change in regulation. And in the form of a motion, I won't actually articulate the motion, we'll leave that to our attorney. But first of all, we want these changes only to apply to flood zones. No e-industrial throughout the village. We do not want that to be included in the changes we're making. Secondly, we want to make no changes in the heights of buildings. Currently, we have 35 feet for residential and 45 feet commercial. We do not want to change the habitable structure height of buildings. But what we do want to do is give relief in compliance with FEMA for non-habitable space underneath these buildings in a flood zone. So if you're in an 8-foot flood zone where the water is likely to come 8 feet at some time in the next 100 years, you can't build anything below 10 feet. So if you want to build a house on that property, you can build a 45-foot tall structure. And Brian's going to go over this. He's got charts. But you can build a 45-foot tall structure. The bottom 10 feet of that structure will be some kind of columns that will hold the structure up. You can put your lawnmower in there, you can park your car in there maybe, but you can't live in it. If you're in a 4-foot flood zone where the water might come up 4 feet, you can't build anything below 6 feet. So you could then have a structure that's 35 plus 6 or 41 feet. Now, worst case scenario, you're in a 10-foot flood zone, I don't think we have any, and you're a commercial structure, okay? So it's 10, flood, water, okay? 2 feet for what FEMA calls freeboard, just like you're in a boat, and then a 45-foot structure. So you could have a 57-foot tall structure someplace in the village. But the habitable space in that commercial structure would only be 45 feet, as it is now. Is that enough?
That's pretty accurate.
Brian? You're up.
This is all the more fun to do with the cold, so. Higher?
Brian, I know you'll make the point, but everybody, all building heights end up being the same.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Over the rail? Okay. This is a visual proposal. I failed art, so this is not the best, and do not report me to my mother, yes, my handwriting is terrible. I just want to try to explain what, this is with excellent impact, and I want to start out by saying zoning with the zoning board chairman, Nick Fusillo, and his board and the planning board gave excellent input into this and explaining it, and I want to start out with a non-flood. If you're in a non-flood zone, so you're anywhere else in the village of Patchogue but in a flood zone, this is how you're with the proposal today is to judge height of a structure. This is the proposed amendment that's before the board. The language has evolved slightly from the proposed law, but this is the intention of it. I'm just using the example of Baker Street at a 0 elevation, meaning it's on grade at Baker Street. You're allowed in an A residence 35-foot high structure. So shooting from a zero elevation perfect, this is a 35-foot structure. Let's just assume that somewhere on Baker Street there is a 4-foot height change. It's 4 feet higher than the road. Could happen, but just to say, let's just go with it. These are all hypotheticals because the elevations change all over the village. There's a 4-foot difference, 4-foot hill from the height at Baker Street. You're allowed a 31-foot height building, 35 feet. You're 4 feet below grade, somewhere on Baker Street, below the road grade. You're allowed to have a 39-foot building. Your height at 35 stays the same across. Sure, so far so good? Jerry helped develop these charts too, by the way, so for any confusion, he bears as much blame as I do. But it's my explanation that's going to do it. So far so good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Any questions on this? This is just.
What's the 0 level?
This is at grade. When your property, the 0 is exactly on grade with Baker Street. I'm just using Baker Street.
The 0 level for the village?
No.
Is it the crown of the road?
It's the crown of the road.
Which is
It could be
already where
anywhere.
the code is written.
Correct. It could be anywhere. Highland Avenue, Prospect, supply the name, the top part of Cedar. This 0 is just assuming
Outside.
the crown of the road.
Is there a baseline for the whole village?
No, there is not.
Not like low tide or anything?
No. Just the baseline changes based upon the height of your road.
And it's outside the flood zone,
Correct.
not inside the flood zone.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with where the tide line is or where FEMA is going to declare where the floodplain is. This is outside of the flood zone, and we're using the crown of the road as where you're going to shoot the height of the elevation to be.
And this isn't new, this is an example, correct, of how we do it now. Is that correct?
Correct. We use a certain more complicated calculation that also talks about the ground, the base of the structure, but we're trying to set a baseline for understanding. The proposal is to have it at the street. So your height is going to depend upon whatever your street is. Which most likely is pretty much even with what the road is in front of you. But, sir.
Yes, the first example, the 31 and the 4 feet, could that 4 feet be high enough for a parking garage?
No, probably not.
Well, not 4 feet, but suppose it's 10 feet.
Potentially. But
If it was outside of the flood zone, right?
Pardon me?
If they were considering a subsurface parking lot, right, there would be 4 feet above the crown of the road and maybe 10 feet below the crown of the road. So there could be a subsurface parking lot in that example, but the maximum height of the building
I'm
from the
sorry,
grade of the
looking at
property.
non-flood.
Your maximum is not changing.
In a flood zone, though, this wouldn't apply.
Correct, this is not flood.
Sorry.
Correct. The village loses a certain amount of control on the flood in the flood zones. That's why I wanted to, what this proposed legislation do, forget about the industrial proposal. Forget about that. Keeping it at this, I'm just trying to give a baseline for how it exists now. This is what it looks like. If everybody can get these +4, -4, and dead on grade at Baker Street, assuming this is right where this is.
The
Okay.
intent is to keep all of your structures at an even height, so you don't have stuff all over the place.
I have a question. So what you're saying is that basically the upper level for all of these buildings remains pretty much the same.
The highest point of the roof, yes.
Is that the reason for the law? Is that the reason why we have this?
Height, why we have height of a building?
Yeah.
And why heights are
Is it-
set
is it
throughout
to-
the code?
Is it to maintain some?
Yes.
So in other words, the character of a neighborhood, okay, has some determination based on height. In other words, height, okay, this law, okay, and let me see if I can phrase this differently. This is in some ways helps to ensure the character of a neighborhood. So this building wouldn't be way up there and everything is down here.
Generally, yes.
Okay.
Because you're generally going to be along, your neighbor's not going to have a 4-foot drop.
Okay. All right, but what is the reason for this?
This already exists. This existed since the first enactment of the zoning.
Okay. All right.
Josephine, using the crown of the road makes it easier for the building inspector and the zoning board chair to determine, okay, what's the height of the building going to look like, right? So when they go through the planning process, they use the crown of the road, so you don't have.
So
that-
what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, that how the building looks when it's completed is important in terms of what surrounds it?
Sure. And by the way, also, this is by zone. This is 35 as a residence, 45 in commercial. As you go along, the zones change in height. This is just my A residence example.
I understand that.
Also, what this tries to prevent is this tries to prevent gamesmanship, which Trustee Hilton excellently pointed out, by filling properties in.
I'm sorry?
By filling properties in.
Okay.
So it prevents the gamesmanship of somebody putting their property up by 4 feet, then saying, haha, I get 35 feet on top of that, so now I've got a 39-foot structure.
Okay. But this is in residential non-flood.
Correct. The concept in commercial is the same as well, all within the zones, meaning each zone has a height. And all the heights are the same generally within those zones. So the concept, just cross this number out, make this 45 in a commercial zone.
Thank you.
Is that a maximum height or an average slope of the roof line?
No, the definition is going to be, the proposed definition before the board is, the height of a building is defined as, unless otherwise stated, the vertical distance measured from the mean average grade of the adjoining or fronting streets, because it's a corner, to the highest point of the roof, provided that chimneys, spires, elevators, penthouses, tanks, and similar permitted projections should not be included in the purpose. So it's the highest point of the roof. It's a slight modification to what the trustees are going to think about putting in tonight. Everyone with me so far on this? All right. This one gets much more complicated. Okay.
Right. Just make sure people understand that this is for the court,
Yeah.
not just the industrial.
Correct.
And what the orange line is.
Correct. Good. All excellent points. Feel free to jump in, by the way.
Sure.
This is
Well, you're on your own.
This is only for the flood zone and applies to everyone in the flood zone, regardless of whether you're industrial, residential, commercial, municipal, doesn't make a difference. This is all flood zone properties. If you're located in the FEMA mapped flood zone, this proposal's going to apply to you. Let me reset the baseline for where we were before. This is your 30, this is assuming an A residence in a flood zone. By the way, this is not a requirement. This is only if you need to do you're in one of those three categories. If your house has only been slightly damaged, and believe me, all of us just went through the flood, there is no slight damage, but let's just assume slight damage under the FEMA code. You don't want to do anything to your house, and FEMA doesn't require you to do it, you don't have to do it. If you have to do it, and FEMA requires you to do it, how we pay for it is another question. That's a good question for the congressman, but not for us. But if FEMA requires you to do it, this is what's going to happen. What we hope to try to give is a credit to the village residents to make it easier for them to qualify for this. Here's your 35 feet in your residence. Same chart as before. +4 I just used Argyle Lane because I knew that that was hit pretty hard down there. Argyle Lane elevation is 0. This is -4. This was your 35 feet height before. This line here. Under your A residence. Remember the guy had a 39-foot house, +4. FEMA then comes along arbitrarily, and this is what, as we best understand it, this is what's going to happen. They're going to set a flood elevation throughout the village, and that is going to change. This number is not in stone. As George made the point before, the river changes, the heights on east side and west side change, the bottom of the river is different from the top of the river. It's going to be up to, depending upon whatever, beyond our control, FEMA sets this flood elevation, this base flood elevation, okay? This is the new flood elevation. To FEMA, in the area, it's generally, you're not going to have this dramatic a change, but this now baseline is now irrelevant to them. They've now set it that you're going to be this above your grade. You now have to be 8 feet above an arbitrary number. This house needs 8 feet to come up, meaning his lowest board has to be above that number. So he is going to get an application to raise his house to 43 feet in total from the base to the top. But from living space, he's only going to have 35 feet above the flood line. Okay? George?
That's for existing structures, correct?
Correct, and new if you need this relief.
Existing damaged structures.
Existing
substantial
damaged structures, right. FEMA required houses that need to be raised.
Right.
And new. And new.
And new.
Yep, because FEMA's not going to allow you to build in a flood zone a new house that's going to be hit by a flood.
Right.
So that's this. You're now going to get above the mean flood line. Look at this orange line. In the 8 residents, you're allowed to have 35 feet. This is the 35 feet you're allowed to have. Here's the 35 feet of house. They will have a maximum height of 35 feet from the flood line. Josephine Miller's point about having a uniform neighborhood, don't look at these numbers up here. Look at the roof lines. It's going to be 35 feet from the flood line, depending upon the relief. Can I pick on your property for a second, Josephine, just as an example? Okay. Josephine has a house that's very much lower up by the river compared to the house that's much higher. It's not as dramatic as this, but you see that difference. If you had to raise your house, you'd need the 8 feet. But the house in the back may need 12 feet to get there. So ostensibly, you're going to have a 47-foot high structure from the base. But your height line is still going to be 35 feet above the baseline. So this roof line definition is going to remain the same to the highest point of the roof. But instead of having the 35 feet from the flood, from your elevation, it's going to be from your flood line. Why? Because you want the maximum house use to still be usable. The consequence is if you knock this down, people will lose attics and second stories if they have to raise their height. So what this is hoping to do is to say to the zoning board, consider these changes that are not imposed by us but are imposed by the feds, and give them the credit for this and include it in this definition. By changing the height, again, it's a fairly simple concept. By changing the height definition, we're saying give them credit for this addition that they need to do. And this is what it says. When determining building height of new or existing structures in a FEMA flood zone only, the starting point shall be the minimum elevation above the FEMA base flood elevation as required by Chapter 210, which we just passed here, of the village code and or other applicable state or federal floodplain requirements or regulations. Because FEMA, if you're new or need to have existing structures that need to be raised, this is what's going to be your change. The feds are not going to allow you to do anything below this. So this is going to be your new 35 feet. But you're gonna have building heights that are gonna be, in reality, changed like this, but your roof lines are gonna be consistent across.
So what it boils down to is, you're looking at something like New Orleans, which is a bunch of houses built on stilts.
Depends, in certain neighborhoods, it could be.
Along the river.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
If the feds require that, that could be a reality.
Oh, welcome to Parish Picayune.
So even if it's 12 feet, even if we go to 12 feet, it's still only 47 feet high.
No.
No, it's 35 plus 12.
And that's 47.
47, that's what you said, yeah, 47, correct, that's what it'll be.
Okay. So it still can't be above 47.
It'll still be above 47, yes, but it'll be your new reset 35 to the maximum. That's a max, by the way, that number could change. I don't imagine it's gonna be 13 somewhere, but that could be 13. I could also imagine it could be 1 or 2. So if you need to only go up 2 feet, well, from Main Lane, a very good example. I mean, there was no damage to the corner of Main Lane and Vermin, God bless, thank God. But on other parts, very near, there was. So you know, right, on both sides. So it depends upon what your elevation looks like on your property to start with. So you could only need this relief.
Does anyone know when FEMA is going to determine the baseline flood line?
I believe it's already determined. On the maps, isn't this already determined?
It's already on the map.
It's already.
I think it is.
What is it?
Again, it depends on where you are.
And that number can change. If they change it, they can increase it.
If they come down and say, you know what, 8's too much in your neighborhood, it's 4, it's 12. But this is being imposed on the village residents, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve the ability for the village to have 35 feet above the flood line. Yes?
Where in that bottom number, 4, 8, and 12, does the 2 foot of clearance above the 8-foot flood stage come in?
That's a good question, that's a good clarification. It will be included in that. So my example really is 6 plus 2. 4 plus 2. I just made the assumption to make it easy to put it in that. Whatever the FEMA requirement is, if it's 6 plus 2, meaning 8, this is just for illustrative purposes. But it's gonna be whatever FEMA is gonna require. So if the applicant, the homeowner comes in and says, okay, FEMA requires you to have 2 plus 2, that's 4. Sir?
So that 2 foot would add to the top number.
It would be, I have it, what I did, I just included it in here.
Which would add your top number. You go to 41, 45.
No, you'd still be 35 from here. You'd still be 35 from your flood line, right?
Brian, if I may.
Yes,
There are three,
yes, as a total, correct.
There are 3 numbers. There's the base elevation, which is the high water mark in a 100-year period determined by FEMA, which can be very variable from 10 feet to 6 inches, depending on how close you are to the river and what the elevation, how far your land is above sea level. Okay? Then there's this 2 feet of freeboard. Okay, they want 2 feet of property that's not going to get wet. Okay, the water's going to come up that high and once in 100 years and stop. So they want that 2 feet in there. And then there's your opportunity for a 35-foot structure on top of that. So there's 3 parts to this. That below that orange line on the chart, that's FEMA turf. That's taken away from us by the FEMA.
Just to back up what you said before, it's a good point. The definition is the starting point shall be the minimum elevation above the FEMA base flood elevation as required by Chapter 220 and or other applicable state or federal floodplain requirements or regulations. So 2 plus 2, 6 plus 2.
Currently, I think if you build a gambrel roof, the maximum height is the center point of that last break in the roof. So that will now be out, and it's, no matter what roof style you have, it will be the peak of the roof.
The highest point of the roof, provided that chimneys, spires, elevator penthouses, tanks, and similar permitted projections shall not be included for the purpose of determining height. So we stripped it down to the highest point of the roof.
And also, someone told me FEMA is rewriting their flood maps. They're supposedly done in July, but preliminary maps went out to New Jersey recently, but supposedly they hadn't gone to Long Island.
I would suspect after the last storm, they probably are redoing them, so when we get them, we'll let everybody know.
Oh,
Yeah, so, and I don't know whether we can get them in just form where we can load them on to the website or not, but I'll find out. We should be able to.
There might be something having to do with Old Inlet, what happens with that as well.
I mean, that Old Inlet, exactly.
Talk about the zone differences too. The same, the concern also was that the proposal, this is the same logic and explanation that will provide in an industrial zone as well. There was the proposal before, I think Trustee Ferb was thinking about modifying that, eliminate that, remain at 45 as stated.
Absolutely.
So apply, just change these numbers and make this a 45, okay? And just make that industrial, the industrial.
So basically, this resolution is totally different from the one, like basically we're scrapping this one and coming up with a new resolution.
Absolutely.
Correct, as I read it.
Okay.
Yeah, because there was substantial input from the zoning board chairs and the planning board chairs.
Would you have to
No,
notice a public hearing?
that's why we have a public hearing. We noticed the public hearing, we like to get the input.
Right.
That's why it results in modification.
You know, there are two things that we're looking to do. We're looking to preserve neighborhoods and be able to make sure that the habitable space, the 35 feet or the 45 feet, stays consistent. You know, you want to preserve a neighborhood by not having homes or structures, sort of like dominoes going up and down. And that you don't get that home, and we have a couple places where it's already happened, where the home itself is so much higher than the plane of the neighborhood. So that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to preserve those neighborhoods. We're also looking to preserve the ability to create a home for yourself or a business that has a habitable space that's equal to what you had before. Young lady in the corner. Name, please. Did you wander up?
My name is Pajana Siska. I live on Pine Boulevard, which is right by Argyle Lane. And I understand that you're leaving the habitable height the same. You're just raising the final height because of the FEMA requirements. And knowing the government, I've been around for a while now, the government, one hand doesn't talk to the other. So I was just curious whether they have talked to we're on a flight path to Islip Airport, whether, 15 feet isn't going to do that much difference, but have they talked to about the fact that Patchogue Village is talking about raising their houses?
We haven't. I don't think we're going to be that high that it's ever going to be that situation.
Yeah.
I think that I think this is an extreme. I think that the 4 foot below, I think a 12 foot is extreme, but
it would be nice to mention it to them and have them okay it before, just in case. It's government.
thank you. Yeah.
Is there other questions?
So, in E-Industrial, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Miller, will you stand up so people can see?
So in E-Industrial, it's 45 feet, as opposed to residential where it's 35, right? So if if FEMA requires in a particular spot 8 feet, that's 8 feet added to 45, and they get
Correct.
53?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. That's if that's using this example. The logic on the heights were all the same because that's the kind of relief you're going to need.
And on any particular project, who determines whether it's 4 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet?
FEMA.
Yeah, it's
So
gonna be-
FEMA comes down on every single, or they put out a map?
Yeah, the map.
They put out a map.
They're determining the base flood elevation. In this situation, the building inspector determines non-flood areas. Again, this is only flood areas. This is non-flood areas. The building inspector, and it's written into the code, the building inspector shall be responsible for any interpretations concerning average grade. In this case, FEMA is going to set this map of what this number is.
And when can we expect those maps?
Bruce said you thought July?
They mentioned the end, mid-July.
Okay. It's coming.
Brian, we have maps already.
Yeah, there are existing maps.
It's just that a civilian can't understand. You need Peter Sarich to understand these maps. I've already looked into this for my own property. We haven't implemented, this is going to be building code, folks. It's not zoning board, okay? It's going to get put in the code. So when an application to do a building goes into the building department, they're going to read it. And we're going to have to know, right now, if you look at your survey, you'll see elevation, okay? It's all over this survey. That's the height of that spot on your property, above sea level, okay? Which is the average between high tide and low tide. In the future, we're going to have a FEMA height on a map, on a survey that's in a flood zone. And we'll probably have to make that a requirement in our surveying process.
Based on FEMA regulation, the height is determined from the base of the grade up. So that this measurement is from the foundation to, as we said earlier, to the highest point of the peak of the roof.
What flood zones will this affect? Is it just
all flood zones?
So if I'm in flood zone C, which I think is 500, so then I'd be the calculation in that area would be based upon.
And this is if you're required to do this. Again, you're in one of those three categories.
Well, so if you build new or...
Correct. Not everybody has to do this. You don't, just because you're in a flood zone does not mean you need to do this. I want to be clear with that too.
Only if there's, Mr. Seaman, Bernie, do you have your hand up?
I'm not gonna go up there.
Okay. So you have privileges.
I quote from the newspaper article, Hurricane Sandy is a prime example of what can happen. We have a 45-foot height total in industrial, about 3.5 stories. If we don't change the code, it's now no longer 45 feet of usable space. It will allow you to build to FEMA regulations. What are you projecting along the river? Are you talking of a 60-foot of a 60-foot building?
No. No, those numbers are at, it will be 45 plus whatever the FEMA flood height is at that point. So if it's 45 and it happens to be 6 foot, it'll be 51 feet.
Well, Ferb, what elevation would you have to build out at now at your location?
The back corner of my septic field is 7 feet above sea level. Okay, the water was about 3 feet below my habitable space. I mean, my basement part, and there was water all around my house, but it was bare.
So if you had to rebuild, would you have to go up an additional 3 feet?
I honestly don't know what. I mean, this was a 4 or 5 foot surge. That was real surge, right? I don't know what the map says because I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen any numbers larger than 8.
Yeah, and 8's really at the river.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a number
So
higher than 8.
unless things drastically change, I don't think 60 will ever be realized.
So 53 feet, maybe.
Maybe 55 because it's the 8 foot plus the 2 feet.
This is the variable.
Yes,
Yes.
you had said
Please stand.
the elevation that we
Please
have on
stand.
the surveys
Please stand, please.
represent an elevation from the average between low and high tide? I thought it was mean high water.
You may be right.
I'm just curious, because it's a big difference.
It's mean high water mark.
That's what I would think it would be.
If you can stop by tomorrow, see Peter, we'll get the exact.
Okay,
By the way, and that's hearsay on my part. I'm no expert.
okay.
Bruce?
So they all have nice flat roofs. I'm just curious is if you decide and buildings go up with flat roofs, is there any ability to use the upper roof as a evening deck, a wet bar, a canopy above that? Or
That's
Zoning
something.
and planning.
Yeah, that's something for zoning and
Zoning
planning.
and planning.
The code is very simple. The code just says the highest point of the roof.
George?
Yes. Like Mr. Farb, where it says the base flood elevation, the 35, and then below it is +8. That, where do basements come into play here?
They don't.
Like, your first floor,
Correct.
okay,
That's your freeboard.
It's habitable space.
Correct.
that's, okay.
But you can use underneath there for storage.
So,
The comment of the gentleman earlier about New Orleans and coastal Florida, they don't have basements. You know,
Okay.
They have poles and they have wash away walls.
Right.
So when they get hit with a tidal surge, the walls just fly off, and you got pilings that keep the house up. There are no basements. Then maybe you park your car down there, you put your garage down there, and you keep your bicycles down there, but there's no basements.
no, I'm not talking about new construction, I'm talking about already existing.
It doesn't, the calculation starts at grade, what's underneath.
And this is not mandatory, Pete. This is not mandatory. This only becomes mandatory if FEMA makes it mandatory,
Well,
based upon those 3 conditions.
It's actually 4 conditions, and I've read about it over and over again. If you have more than one claim in flood insurance in 10 years, that equals 50% of the value of your house, then it's not, that is one of the criterias where FEMA is.
I think the way that I read the FEMA regulations, I think it's 3 because it talks about the 50% threshold. I'm not saying you're wrong.
I'm talking about multiple claims.
Yeah, well, that's what Mr. Borges made the point about repetitive damage.
Right, so that's, a little different. I guess FEMA's going to be looking at the people who have multiple.
Brian, I read this today. If you have 3 claims in 10 years,
No, 2 claims.
well, in the regulation I read today, if you have 3 claims in 10 years, they will offer you up to $30,000 cash to mitigate the problem. If you do not accept it, you will not get flood insurance.
Okay, well, we must be reading different things because
Well, the only intention is this: we don't want to change the FEMA
if you have flood insurance,
Yes.
they, it's so ridiculous because it's all FEMA money, whether it's your flood insurance company or whatever. But if you have flood insurance, FEMA is not giving you money. They said you have flood insurance. If you go that $30,000 to raise your house or fill your basement in or whatever, they don't want to pay if you have flood insurance. But your flood insurance says we're not paying.
You have to have multiple
Yeah.
incidents.
This is only to the zoning code for the village of Patchogue in giving credit to homeowners who have no choice and are going to lose this height on their house.
Not a drop of water in my basement, thank you God. I feel for the people who suffered in the flood. So even though I'm in a flood zone, no damage, no requirement to do anything.
Enjoy your basement.
No home, no foul.
Yep.
All right.
Good evening. One other question. You keep talking about your top line being fairly level, so to speak, but you said there's 3 exclusions to that. Chimneys, fire escapes, and elevated penthouses?
Yes.
You might understand that we can circumvent the height by putting an elevator in and then go to the sky? I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious more, but this is what, we don't want the river properties, somebody can build something with an elevator in it and there's no height restriction?
No, no. That was a request from the zoning board. Those are exclusions to the highest point of the roof. Your measurement is to the highest point of the roof, provided that chimneys, spires, elevator penthouses, tanks, and similar permitted projections, that's by the zoning board, shall not be included for the purpose of determining the height. So, if an elderly person needs to have a small elevator penthouse that's 9 feet high or 6 feet high to control
The control house.
Right.
It's not an actual, I'm sorry.
No, you're not a penthouse. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is there a loophole?
No.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Mr. Bojack?
I can sit here, stand there?
Yeah, you come on up.
John Bojack, 8 Roslyn Street. Just a real quick question about a question that a lot of people have, the Fatfish condo development. So, 8 feet, let's say for FEMA, right? including the 2 feet that the Freeport
Yeah,
space.
this is my assumption of this is 6 plus 2 is my example. But again, it's gonna be all over the place.
Okay, now, the construction of that building, as you know, has a unusable space for a garage, about 10 feet. So where does that 10 feet figure in?
That's it.
Does it figure into the 45 feet?
If
Or
it
not?
fits in the FEMA definition of what this space needs to be, meaning if they're gonna consider their freeboard above this line, that would be this flood elevation relief.
Let me see if I understand this, John.
Yeah,
Let me see if the flood line, right, is, say, 3 feet above grade, right? And his parking garage is 10 feet.
Right.
Right, so he would have 3 feet of a parking garage below the flood line and 7 feet of the parking garage above the flood line, right? So above the flood line, he's only allowed 45 feet. So that would include 7 feet of parking garage and another 38 feet above that.
I'll put it differently. So the parking space is subtracted from the 45 feet or is not included? In
Part of it. If it will qualify in this, FEMA's definition of a base flood line, fits under here.
It does.
And your roof is gonna be above that, or it would be 45 feet above that.
Okay, so we don't have FEMA offset 10 feet for the parking space and then 45 feet above it. We don't have that.
No.
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 All right, thank you.
No.
It would be 10 feet total.
Correct.
Any other questions? Any other comments by the board? If we have a motion to accept as presented. Motion. Second? Second. Trustee Krieger, all in favor? So carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to compliment the zoning board.
Actually, I want to compliment, first compliment Mr. Egan.
He's getting paid. But I wanted to compliment the zoning board and the public.
Imagine how I am.
I asked them if we must have been flood, and they said, well, we can.
Take a 5-minute recess. Back. 5 minutes. Motion. Recess for 5 minutes.
That's going to change.
Second. All in favor?
That there's not even anybody who would take that on.
Yeah. Well, they were built really good, because we have an old house like that too.
So that's the problem you're gonna raise.
It's not really good.
Ours is, but
Ours was
yeah.
until the basement and the foundation collapsed from the pressure of the water.
Yeah, that's
So now all the walls are cracked.
That's a different story, because they really were built, but you know, when you have like the flush of water, it's a whole different thing.
You can blow Katrina came along, the amount of
They don't have enough, they just don't have enough people.
They don't have the
to
money to really control the problem. And basically to pay all the people. And what they're trying to do, I think at some point, they're gonna see it happen. They're gonna have to take on more responsibility of restoring and protecting the house itself. They'll need the insurance to a point, but they're
A
gonna.
resolution approving the settlement of tax certiorari proceedings brought by Cantor Company LLC, property located at 73 North Ocean Avenue, the amount of $6,500. Motion? Motion. All right. All in favor? We have a presentation. Denise Adele. I should have figured.
She's in perfect with the purple.
I should have figured that out. I'm looking
You
at
recognize me. Hi, as you know, I'm Denise Adamo. I'm from the Relay for Life of Patchogue, Medford. Most of you were here at my last presentations. The Relay for Life is to raise money for the American Cancer Society, and the village has been very generous in supporting us. We are entering our 7th year, and in the 6 years that we've been doing this, we've raised over, I have the figure here, $423,000. So, just to explain a little bit for those of you who don't know about the relay, what we do is, a lot of people wonder why we have the word relay in there, because it's not really a sporting event. But we do form teams. I welcome all of you, any of you and all of you, to form a team with your family, friends, and we do fundraising, conduct fundraising activities, and it all goes into research and our celebration at the end, which is the first weekend in June. I think it's June 2nd and 3rd this year. And the night of relay, we a member of your team usually walks around the track. We hold it at the Patchogue Medford High School, and we go around the track and we see all the sponsors' signs, and people purchase what we call luminaria bags to remember victims and to celebrate survivors. There's a survivor dinner for people in our community who have survived the battle, and that's pretty much. The color of relay is purple, so that's why I wear purple to mostly every event I see. And the village has been kind enough to help us out when we paint. When you see the lines painted down the street, when it's painted purple, you know the Paint the Town's Purple campaign has begun. That's takes place about a month before our final relay event. And I'm just coming before you to ask you to please continue your support.
What day is it for relay?
I believe it's the 2nd and 3rd.
Is it Friday, Saturday?
No, it's Saturday,
Sunday,
Sunday.
so it's the 1st and 2nd.
June. We have our kickoff. I want to invite you all to our kickoff, which will give you the flavor of our relay. And it's going to be held next week, February 5th, at the high school. We'll, and every meeting, we meet once a month too. The team captain or anybody can come to the meetings that we hold every month, and every month they talk about the mission of the American Cancer Society, and talk about various aspects. We have a member usually gives somebody usually talks about why they joined relay. And we have a lot of fun too in our various activities and our meetings. It's a very worthwhile cause, as I'm sure you all know. That's it.
$400,000, very impressive. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, so help us reach $500,000 this year.
Okay.
I can talk to anybody after the meeting about, if you want to join a team, if you want any more information. Our website is relayforlife.org/PatchogueMedford.NY. So you can get more information there, sign up for a team, or you can make a donation. If anybody wants to give me a donation tonight, I'd be happy to accept that. Thank you.
I don't see Dennis Smith, but I do see Gail, Executive Director of the Chamber.
Pardon me?
Good evening, Gail.
Good evening. Gail Holt, 15 North Ocean Avenue, Patchogue. We have good news, always with stores coming. Today we just got a brand new member, Ronnie's Jewelry, which is coming into Joel Furman's corner store. He's not gonna be opening until March 1st. And he came, and a lot of people did recommend the chamber. He had stopped in to see Dennis. Dennis told him to come see the chamber. Joel told him to come see the chamber. And also, the first call this morning I had was from Kellyanne Barget, who is a civic member of the chamber, and her mother owns a Long Island Care at Home in Bellport. And she said, I talked to Ronnie, and I told him to come and join the chamber. So we had 3 people recommending us right there. He's a very nice man coming in. We were not sure of when we're going to have the grand opening yet, but he's planning on opening on March 1st. We also, word gets out about Patchogue. I had a woman from Copay call today. She's been having like a home business, and she's looking for a storefront in Patchogue. So we gave her some ideas of, and I gave her some phone numbers to call to help her come to Patchogue also. And on Saturday, February 9th, we have a grand opening and ribbon cutting at 11 a.m. for Wisteria Lane and the Cheese Patch. It's at 11 North Ocean Avenue.
Sorry, Gail, that was this Saturday? This Saturday?
No, February 9th.
February 9th, 11 a.m.?
Yes, at 11 a.m. I'll be getting out letters and emails about it. The owners, Tracy Calder-Casper, owns the Wisteria Lane, and Paige Pfeiffer is the Cheese Patch. I know so many people have been there, and boy, is it really bad having the office right next door, because I keep running in there all the time. And we watch it, if they're getting new packages or new things, I follow them in. On Saturday, February 9th, also, one of our chamber members, Ovations Dance Repertoire Company, will perform Disney's Aladdin Jr. at 11 and 3 at the Patchogue Theater. So I figure if we all go to the grand opening at the 11 o'clock, and then we go have lunch in Patchogue, and then we can go, if you have children, we'll take them 3 o'clock to the... I have my tickets already. 3 o'clock to the show, and then, you know, without children, go out to dinner at night. So we can make it a day in Patchogue. We're going to have a network. We'll be sending out information sometime during the week of February 11th. We're going to have a networking at Hoptron, and Paige from the Cheese Patch will be giving us samples of cheese there also. And that's like from 6 to 8, and we'll be getting more notices. Friday, it's Thursday, Valentine's Day. For the 14th, I suggest any presents that you would like to give somebody. There's plenty of places to shop in Patchogue. You can go out and dine, and there's also entertainment for the evening. On Thursday, February 21st, our business promotion committee is having a fundraiser at Claire Rose Playhouse. It's the Best of Broadway, a cabaret show. If you would like to come and support the business promotion committee, just call Larry or Lori at the Colony Shop. Lori's here, and their number is 475-0070. On Saturday, February 23rd, again, is the 10th annual Ronan Timon concert at the Patchogue Theater at 8 p.m. On Sunday, the 24th, is Passing of the Sash and the Irish Soda Bread Contest on the Barefoot Princess, 116 Division Avenue. That's at Harbor Craft. That's 1 p.m. And Michael Rao is this year's Grand Marshal.
What's the date of that again?
Sunday the 24th, 1 p.m. We always have a good time at that one. And we get the Irish soda bread. It's always donated by our restaurants and bakeries, and you get to taste it, and you have your cup of tea with that. And you get to vote on one.
Great selection on the Grand Marshal.
We think so, yes, thank you. And also I'd like to thank Tom Ferg for helping raise money for the Eloise Dodger walkway sign. I'd like to thank everybody who contributed to it. We're just about there, and Tom has been working on it, and the plans are heading for that. And also then, we're getting ready for our summer events, so that's it for, thank you.
I'm going to ask, ask trustee Green to follow up, because he's got the approvals. Want to do that?
You wanna do it? You wanna do
Oh,
it?
okay.
Yeah, we'll go out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Gail, for all your hard work. And there are a number of approvals that I'm going to be seeking from the board on behalf of the chamber. And the first one is one that's morphed into quite a popular event, not only for residents of the village, but island-wide. You know, people come from all over Long Island and come downtown to enjoy what the village has to offer. And the popularity of the event has put a little bit of a strain on services that are provided from public safety as well as the 5th Precinct. So in order to try to alleviate some of those pressures, the discussions that were had at the chamber and with the mayor and some of the directors of the chamber were to switch the evening from Friday to a Thursday. And it would be an attempt to try and, having to go to work the next day might tone down the revelry of the evening, where it might put less of a strain on the 5th Precinct. So we're looking for 4 dates with a rain date, starting on Thursday, July 11th, the 25th of July, August 8th, and August 22nd. And we're looking to have the event where the roads would be closed. Setup would be at 4 o'clock, and then the events would be over by 9 p.m. with the breakdown to be completed by 10 o'clock. So looking for those 4 dates, and then a rain date for Thursday, September 5th. I want to thank the chamber and Paul for trying to make this a family fun event and attract residents and guests to our downtown. So
This has been a very important event. And I think what's happened also is that now that you have the theater on a Friday night, we'll normally have something during the course of the summer. 89 North will have something on a Friday night, as will the Emporium. Bringing people out to Main Street on a Friday night doesn't seem to be a problem anymore. You move it to an off night, you give those businesses a little bit of a bump on a night that they may not have that bump, but also take some of the pressure off of Main Street in the sense of what happens in the theater, 89 North and the Emporium, and just on Main Street in general on a Friday night. So we'll see how it goes. Motion to accept is presented. Motion by trustee Green. Second. All in favor?
Aye. And they're just looking for, I guess as part of the same motion is that we're looking for permission to hang a banner, actually 2 different banners on East and West Main Street. I don't know if there'll be other events that want to raise banners. It seems like a lengthy time from July 5th to August 26th. Usually have like a 2-week.
We did have last year, we took it down from the back. Yes, they've gone up.
You can get them up and down.
The music.
Yeah, we did a festival, so.
So yeah, if we can get DPW to coordinate that, that'd be great. And then secondly, another popular event, the 41st annual July sidewalk sale. So that'll be a 3-day event, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, July 11th through July 13th. Belongs among many of our other merchants, Colony Shop, use that as a promotional weekend to attract customers to the village. So it's been a very popular event, and that'll be from, 9:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that's in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Jerry, I don't want, excuse me for interrupting, but at the same meetings that we had switched from the Friday to the Thursday day, there was a tremendous amount of concern by the fire department to keep North and South Ocean Avenue clear because that's, the South Ocean is their route to the south end as far as answering the fire.
Yeah.
Now, and I see on the Live After 5 application that they want to keep North Ocean from Main Street to Oak Street closed.
Yeah, but open, yep, but open it up to the trucks to come through. They
Yeah,
just closing and
Close to traffic.
it's closed to traffic. We're asking it to be blocked so cars are not coming in and going up North Ocean Avenue. It will be closed. We're not planning to put anything there. Fifth Precinct will have one side for their command center like they did last year, and then we would put the ambulance company on the other corner when they're always at that corner too. We're not asking for anything. It's just for the protection of the people walking across Main Street,
Right.
so that you don't have cars
There
coming
won't
down.
be any beer gardens or Mr. Softy or anybody in the middle.
Nothing there, no.
Ocean at all.
No, we had agreed with the previous, there would not be anything there, but you have to stop, block them at those corners, just for the protection of people crossing the
Okay.
street. That was it. Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I guess another popular event is the Family Fun Night, and we're looking to host that. The Chamber is looking to host that on Friday, July 12th. And this is all predicated on approval from the Suffolk County PD. And that would be July 12th from 6 to 9 p.m. And that's in the form of a motion.
second.
I just have a question, why? It just seems odd to have it the day immediately after an live event, like we got that on the 11th, and then the next night we got something else on the street.
Laura,
Why is it the same?
usually we did Family Fun Night on Thursday and a Live After 5 was on Friday because it's a big sale weekend.
Oh, okay, so
we
it's gotta be
incorporated
the
it all
sale
together.
weekend.
But now we're switching, the Live After 5 will be Thursday and Family Fun Night will be Friday.
And then another sidewalk sale day would be in the month of August, and that's from Thursday.
I'll give it a second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
The August sidewalk sale days are from Thursday, August 8th through Saturday, August 10th. And that would be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday, and 9 to 8 p.m. on Thursday and Saturday. So, and that's in the form of a motion.
Actually, you can do 4 and 5 together, Jerry. You know, because Oldie's Family Night is
Okay.
part of that whole weekend.
Right.
Sounds
Just
good.
came over as a separate.
Yeah, we'll merge those two together, that'd be fine. And again, predicated on Suffolk County PD approval.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
All right. And then lastly, another popular event that just keeps growing each and every year. Tom Keegan initiated this a few years ago, is the St. Librada Festival. And we're looking to host that on Saturday, September 28th, with a rain date of Saturday, October 5th. And that'll be on Main Street from 12 noon to 6 p.m. And once again, they're looking to also request the permission to hang a banner on East Main Street from September 13th to September 30th. And that's in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Trustee Keys.
Mr. Mayor, fellow board members, ladies and gentlemen, very brief tonight, actually. We experiment, I want to use the word experiment, we applied our brine again this year on Friday, and with, we think, much better results than what we did last year. We're relatively pleased. What we did was went down, just one lane at several streets, South Ocean, Maple Avenue, I think Terry and Cedar Grove, several throughout the village. And it was actually applied during the day. So we pre-brined on spray time.
Explain what brine is.
Excuse me?
Explain what brine is.
Again? Brine is a mixture, it's a it's a water and salt mixture, rather than just apply straight salt or salt sand. This is a very inexpensive way, less expensive way of treating the roads. It's a lot cleaner, keeps all that salt and stuff off the streets. So actually, naturally comes in a liquid form from the trucks. We kind of retrofitted a truck with some pipe and some pumps. We used equipment that we had at our cesspool, the wastewater treatment plant. The old tanks, which we're not using anymore, the old containers, is where we're now mixing the brine. Last year we had kind of like propellers mixing it, and we weren't that pleased with the results. So this year we incorporated big air pumps, big hoses, and we have an airflow through the. It's actually pretty impressive. I mean, if you go down there, Larry Williams would love to give you a demonstration. This guy's really enthused about this kind of stuff. And that's what circulates and stirs the blend. And I don't remember the ratio off the top of my head, but we use a lot less salt. So it's a lot cheaper. And again, as I said, a lot cleaner to apply, a lot cleaner for the streets.
What it does is by coating the streets prior to the storm, it begins to melting as the snow hits it, and for us to plow it at that point, and or just by just general traffic itself, it will hopefully clear the streets quicker, make them safer. What they did, I know that Joe was saying that they did like in Cedar Avenue, they did one half of Cedar, not the other half.
Yeah, we did that at several streets throughout the
Yeah.
village.
So it got out, and you could see where it was slushier than it was
You know what,
on the other
I
half.
wondered about that. I saw that on Cedar.
Yeah, we did.
Because certain parts were slushy and everything was melted and other
We
parts.
did several streets. Like I said, we actually, we put the brine down during the course of the day. The snow came, maybe
I
6
was
o'clock or
wondering why
something.
it was like that. Makes sense.
And it actually, it stayed clean for quite a while. And even when it did start, it looked like it was cooling. It actually wasn't sticking to the road on the side that we, where we brine. So like I said, we're a lot more pleased with this application than our experiment last year, and I expect that we'll be using it more and more. You may have noticed that finally, in front of the post office, we don't have too much of a traffic flow. The pump station, the work there is complete. We're just waiting on a word, and it may be done as now. I haven't had a chance to check it in the last couple of days. Just a little computer modem thing, a little technical thing, but the pump is operational, it's working fine, and we should be able to hopefully start picking up some East Main Street businesses as well.
To the background to that pump station, we were on a consent order by the DEC to replace it. Brookhaven wanted to run sewer lines into East Patchogue, so basically the trade-off was you can hook into our sewer plant if you build our pump station. Was $2.5 million, so the town of Brookhaven basically paid for the pump station into the village of Patchogue. The property that we got from the post office, behind the post office, about 4 years ago, they came to us. They needed, 8 to 10 parking spaces. So we expanded the parking lot a little bit, we swapped the property. So that $2.5 million pump station that's on the post office property cost us nothing, the property cost us nothing. And we don't have a consent order with the DEC anymore. Yeah, actually went pretty well.
And just lastly, we did have our third stormwater committee meeting on Thursday. We had a few residents attend and managed to get our first volunteer to help us put some stickers on some catch basins. And that's open to anybody. Our stormwater committee meets quarterly. So I will be announcing when the next meeting is. We'll have to have you come out and looking for volunteers to help us. It's an education outreach kind of program. We're looking to educate people as to how we all can work together to protect our own stormwater systems through applications of fertilizer, where we wash our cars, oil change, all those kinds of things that come in your little brochure when you get the map that you probably don't read through. So if you come to the meeting, we can really kind of push it across. And Mr. Mayor, I believe that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees. I'll be pretty brief. On the housing front, anybody who's driven down Waverly Avenue, you can see the siding going on in the building. The second, Riverwalk. The second building is all framed up, and they're putting 28,000 yards of dirt down by the river to bring the grade up. Four Corners is pretty, if you look at Four Corners, you can now see things that are above ground level. Concrete walls, pillars, and so on. The parking lot, it's not done. There's quite a bit more work to do, but they're making really good progress. And I have a request, I guess this is a motion, for attendance at a seminar by Mike Recchio, our fire inspector, requesting approval for Mike Recchio, Fire Inspector, to attend the Stony Brook University Code Conference from March 19th to the 21st, 2013, at a cost of $200 plus parking and fuel reimbursement, total cost of $300. They are budgeted costs.
That's a motion. Second. Favor?
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Just a few things tonight. As far as the theater goes, this Thursday night's Lee Bryce concert is sold out. So thank you to the theater, JVC Broadcasting, AEG promotion, the concert promoter coming into the theater. So, excuse me? What's 31st? Thursday night. We're also with the theater working with AEG. If anybody's familiar with concert promotion, they're one of the biggest. To put on some more shows at the theater. They'll be making some announcements within the next week or so about very important Grammy Award-winning artists who may be coming to the theater shortly. So, oh yeah, can't talk about it. You know these showbiz things.
Let's go have a beer.
So that's sold out. And George, tickets for?
Still available.
Still available? Call, who do we call for that?
Oh, the theater.
Oh, the theater box office, that's right, theater box office.
This is Ronan Tynan, right?
Ronan Tynan. Where's Ronan gonna eat that night so everybody can
He'll
go?
eat next door.
He'll eat at Parabel. So get to Parabel early and have dinner with Ronan Tynan. It's always a fun night when he comes. Are our friends coming from Allentown?
Yes, they are.
Oh, good. I look forward to seeing them. Yeah, it's a roof now. A few weeks ago, Trustee Keys and I met with the residents from Rose Avenue. It's been about a year of experiments and conversations. If you're not familiar with the situation, the archery store there, a lot of people are not going into the parking lot, but they're parking on Rose Avenue and creating a parking issue there, a traffic issue, a lot of things. And Joe and I met with quite a few residents of Rose Avenue and discussed options that they could do, either parking, no parking, or permit parking on the street. And we should have put on the agenda to schedule a public hearing. So I'd like to do that. I'd like to make a motion, schedule a public hearing to discuss parking on Rose Avenue.
Second.
We'll do it on February 11th, next week.
February 11th is good, yeah, sooner the better.
All
Joe,
in favor?
I'm sorry.
What are we going to consider?
No parking or permit parking. You gave them a choice.
Okay.
And Joe, you'll contact, you have all the names, just let them know that it's going to be February 11th.
Okay.
All in favor?
Parking meters. I'd like to have the village go out for RFP, an RFP for parking meters to go into Church Street parking lot and Main Street and Ocean Avenue.
South Ocean Avenue.
South Ocean Avenue, correct, not North Ocean Avenue.
And the limits on Main Street?
What we'll do is, once you start putting the proposal together, I'm going to ask for a couple of members of the chamber and a couple of members of the VID to sit down with us to put that proposal together, so we meet the needs of both of those organizations.
It's going to be a joint effort between the village, VID, and the Chamber of Commerce to get the specifics going.
So that's off street, that's going to be from off street.
Off street,
Just
parking.
the Church Street.
Church Street.
Main Street and the Church Street.
For residents?
That hasn't been determined yet on as far as the details go, but we want to just get the RFP together, get quotes.
I'm just gonna ask, is there thought about metering other municipal lots? Is the Church Street lot chosen just because of the success of one particular business, or is this something that we're
It's
to?
probably at this point the most stressed out parking lot, and what we're considering is doing nighttime, evening metered parking. So right now it would just be Church Street, see how that works, and then possibly going into other lots. We'll see.
Well, you used to live on Maple Avenue, right? The Maple Avenue Apartments, right? And they have an underground parking lot there that probably isn't that well utilized.
Never was.
And one of the things I'm fearful of is that when New Village is completed and we have 291 new rental apartments on the four corners with the subsurface parking lot that's designed, and in my own estimation, some of the flaws that exist with that, it's going to probably cause new residents of that development to seek surface spaces first within that Lake Street lot and across from Jennings. And I think one of the things that we're probably going to need to consider with that lot as well. Okay. You know, it's something that those residents are going to gobble up a lot of spaces that merchants are going to use. And
Sure, you mean the Lake Street lot? Which lot?
the Lake Street lot.
Okay.
The Lake Street lot on the north side of Lake Street as well as the one that's interior within the development itself. So if we're going to look to do that, might as well include that within the RFP. I mean, if we're looking at installing these.
Yeah, we could do it in a step, you know, in a phase, anything like that, yeah. And there are other options, you know, we're also considering, you know, getting a parking plan going and talking about purchasing other properties and expanding this out, you know, like they did in the 50s and the early 60s to make parking lots bigger and to, you know, to purchase other properties or get other properties in that way. And we certainly can do it in a step-by-step.
Right.
Because, you know, not only to control parking, but, you know, revenue that the village can realize is fairly significant.
Has one last question regarding that, has there been any decision by either Ron or Emery as to how to designate that parking fund, or is it going to be a separate line in our budget?
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking to do with it. We're looking at it now, set that up. And in fact, George had talked to me about it also, the same thing, the whole idea of having that fund based upon, you know, the meters themselves be separate, because it'll be for acquisition of properties, it'll be for the cleaning of the lots, it'll be for winding of the lots, all those other kinds of things go along with it. Plus the ability to move some of the funds back into the BID, back into the chamber, what they need to do.
And not included in that, though, would be violations to general fund. Right. So that doesn't count as far as, but it is revenue to the village, the violations. So, go ahead. Is there a motion? Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're gonna hold the Jerry Gioso to me?
Yeah, I'm gonna get in touch with Jerry and Ron and Emery.
And speak to Gail.
Yeah.
For a couple, 3 or 4 people, and
Yeah.
maybe the same thing for the BID. Because something we can sit down and we put this together and talk about how we phase it in, how we put it together.
And this is part of a wider scope parking plan that that in the 50s basically saved this village by creating additional parking for retail. So I think that time is right now to revisit those kind of things. And we speculate that within the next 2 years, with the new village in there, and we have more stores coming in, that it's a good problem to have, where we need more parking to accommodate the people who are there. I think that's it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's right, sorry. Oh, and I do have one. from Jim Burbridge, Director of Public Safety. A request for leave of absence for Public Safety Officer Gregory Lagerin. He is going to attend basic military training and technical school for the Air National Guard. Way to go. So that's a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
I would also like to mention our public safety officers again. Every few weeks I get reports for field appearance tickets and parking tickets and things like that, and I gotta say, these guys are doing a bang-up job out there. I know there's been a lot of complaints regarding things like public nuisance, specifically open alcohol, public urination, all these kind of quality of life issues, and these guys are just writing a lot of tickets. They're out in the street, they're doing their job, and they're out there trying to make the village a better place for everybody. So I think we got to give those guys a big hand for the work they do. Jerry's here, Jerry Evelino, one of our guys, who's out there every day, and they're working very hard to take care of the quality of life in the village. And that's all I have.
Trustee Dennis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow trustees. This past Saturday, I had the pleasure of attending the annual Patchogue Arts Council General Meeting, which is the meeting where they introduce as certain trustees phase out and new trustees come on the board, and they invite the general membership. And it's gone by so fast, but the Patchogue Arts Council has now been around for 5 years. It was 5 years ago that we sat in Kelly's kitchen or her dining room. So a lot's been done. We had a great turnout. We used the Plaza Max space, which was nice because they're sister organizations, and they had their board meeting in the PAC space. But it went quite well. And I just wanted to acknowledge that it's been 5 years. The current board is President John Sino. He's finally risen to the role of president. Myself, Titus Cannon, you know him? He's a photographer. He's shown his work in the Walking Arts Tour. Peggy Keegan, a woman named Noelle, who I've yet to get to know. I just met her for the first time on Saturday. And Karen Ferg. This is on the board. I lost track of some of the people who came off with this.
Vicky Fleming.
Jen is off. Some of the people that were on the board wanted to take a step back because it is a lot of work, and they'll be running committees and things like that. And the board is going to be more charged with fundraising, and then the creative work is going to be more done in the committee. So it's kind of breaking up and getting more people involved. So.
Did you mention at the board meeting the county wants?
Yeah, the county has funding that only goes toward the arts, and the county gives funding to all the other arts councils, but the Patchogue Arts Council is a little late to the game. That money comes from the hotel motel tax, and it's only for artistic endeavors. So this year is the first year that the county is awarding an annual stipend to the Patchogue Arts Council of $15,000.
That's great.
Which is great. So the next step, that really helps pay the rent and float the gallery. And what we're looking for the current board to do is start to raise funds, not just for the individual, exhibitions and things that we do, but actually to raise funds so we can have a dedicated part-time administrative person. Because a lot of the work that has to be done by volunteers is very consistent, bookkeeping, grants, all that kind of work. The Arts Council really needs to have somebody who can handle that, a paid position.
Did that money come to Michelle at Bell's Park? Is that part of her funding?
It's on my desk right now. I'm not sure who it's coming to,
okay.
But I'll let you know. I just got the packet from the last So
maybe it's something you can give to Linda also, because the county funding is critical to their.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Because just to mount something like the Patchogue Arts Biennial, which hopefully this year will be the 3rd year for the Patchogue Arts Biennial, it costs about $40,000 to mount that exhibit, between the advertising, building the walls, just everything, making up the books and the mailings. And that's money raised just for that event. So we raise money for the individual events, but we still need money for the rent, which we now have, and we need money for administrative. But it's getting there.
Good.
It's coming along. So.
And the other thing we need to look for is 15,000 square feet of
For the
space.
biennial.
For the biennial.
making that space for the bike. But we'll see. You know, as we get a little bit closer, we have our eye on a couple of buildings, so you can't ask too far in advance because the landlord still thinks they might rent it. But as we get closer, hopefully, you know, John's, you know, he's got his thinking cap on. So with that, I gave each of you, this is not on the agenda, because I just got this from the Patchogue Arts Council. And we had Jen Brady Cotter here a couple of weeks ago. She's one of the chair people of the music committee. So she sent this to us. The Patchogue Arts Council is excited to announce the first annual South by South Shore Music and Arts Festival, a cultural celebration in the village of Patchogue running from April 2nd through the 7th. For 6 days, venues throughout the village will host events featuring music, art, film, theater, and spoken word. For fans of the arts, this continues the renaissance that has made Patchogue a destination for cultural tourists from Long Island, New York City, and beyond. The festival will provide an opportunity for families and friends, locals and visitors to see our great village while enjoying local arts, eats, and entertainment. For the local business community, this will attract a large demographic of key visitors to the village that will increase tourism numbers in this otherwise slow time of year. So here's where they're asking permission. To add a festive atmosphere to the event, PAC would like to incorporate a New Orleans-style sidewalk promenade, passing the venues participating in the festival. We would like to request permission from the Patchogue Village Board of Trustees to 1, host a sidewalk promenade on Saturday, April 6th at 4:30 p.m., beginning at the Patchogue Theater and ending up at the Brick House Brewery, see attached map. The promenade will be open to the public and will feature local musicians playing while walking the route. Secondly, they'd like permission to hang museum-style flags promoting the event, similar to those used from the Walking Arts Tour, on light posts along Main Street. They will tentatively go up the last week of March and hang until the end of the event. 3, this one is a little interesting. We would like to attach spotlights to street lights that will shine the South by South Shore logo on the sidewalk in front of the 8 to 10 participating venues. So I think that's something I would have to discuss with Joe Dean, see if this is possible. The all-weather lights would go up the week of the event, go on for 6 hours each day, and will work on timers. We greatly appreciate your consideration to each of these proposals. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. We are very excited about the first annual Patchogue Arts Festival and hope you will join us in the festivities.
Motion to accept all of those things.
Motion to accept all of those things, and I will discuss with Joe Dean the feasibility of the spotlights. They have 2 potential routes depending on who's participating, but it's just people on the sidewalk, so I don't see any reason why.
Motion is second. All in favor?
I have one other thing that's also not on the agenda. I have a letter from Kathy Seff. She's been a member of our Architectural Review Board. Kathy is moving out of the village of Patchogue back to Bayport, and so she is resigning from the ARB. So seeking board approval to accept Kathy's resignation from the Architectural Review Board with regrets.
With regrets. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, and then seeking approval, we have Catherine Cinto, who's currently an alternate on the ARB. I'd like to move her into a full seat position.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
And that's it. Thank you very much.
Trustee Hilton.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like just one thing this evening. Welcome guests, trustees, Patty. Request approval for the River Avenue PTA to hold the annual 5K run on Sunday, May 5th, beginning at 8 a.m. This event is subject to approval of the Suffolk County Police Department and is also subject to the new $500 fee, which we have been charging all 5Ks in the village, profit or non-profit. That's a motion.
Second. Second.
Yeah, so.
All in favor?
Okay. That's all I have.
Bill, just FYI, no St. Joseph's issue.
No, I know.
Mr. Dean, I'd like to thank you for your, when Lucy said she's going to see you later, and then you'll be getting a mark for it.
And Vinny too, in the back.
Public to be heard. Yes. Mr. Mark Siegel.
Mark Stevens Blums. This is for Joe. A couple guys came to look at that little parking lot.
Yeah.
And they figured out which one they think it is, which is 3 cesspool things, water that go down. This guy asked me, who owns the property? And I said, well, Miss Rowe leases it to the village for $1 a year. Well, I know. I don't know if it's on anymore, but, so they were gonna find out. Never heard from him again.
Yeah, I didn't talk to Joe about it, I'll get back to you.
All right, and the lighting on the side of the west side of the theater is all out, but the back of the theater is on. And the lights in the parking lot, there's a bunch out, and it's dark back there, very dark. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Miller?
Josephine Miller, 276 West Avenue. You mentioned that they're bringing in fill for Riverwalk and raising the grade. So we're back to the floodplain. If they raise the grade, I don't know how high they could raise it. Could they raise it 3 feet with fill? Then where does that 3 feet go? Now do they go from that 3 feet up 45 feet, or are they still at the flood? They're still at the flood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Josephine, I had the same question.
John Bojack, 8 Knoxon Street, and since it's been a long night, I'll be pretty quick. I went to that storm drain committee meeting.
Yes, sir, you did.
Right, and it was a good meeting to go to. And actually, at that meeting, something came up that has been addressed here tonight, so I just want to talk about it very briefly. People have been asking about the floodplain, where does their house figure into this? How can they find out what floodplain they're on? Well, as I recall, at that meeting, there's a FEMA site, and actually I tried to access it today, and there is. You can put your address in, and you can find out where you fit in the floodplain of the world. Unfortunately, the site was crashed today, but it's there. I presume a lot of people from Patchogue Village are looking. But it's there, and maybe that could be worked into the village website as well.
I was going to say, can you send me the link, and
Oh, sure.
I'll put the link on our website to link to that, and that's great.
That might be helpful for
Thank you.
people
Yeah, that's great.
to use. All right, and I learned that at the meeting.
Any other comments from the public?
Can I just ask a question? I just need a little clarification. Excuse me if I'm just not getting it. But
What's your name again, just for the record, so?
Kathleen O'Sullivan. So we have floodplain maps now, but the new ones are not coming out till July. So people whose houses, not mine, thank goodness, but people whose houses are falling apart and need to rebuild now, what are they basing it on if we don't have the floodplain maps till July?
On what's current today?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And, with the feds, I don't want to say the feds are a moving target on this. They hope to try to stabilize these as they establish their base flood elevations. But you're right, that's a question, I don't know how dramatic, I don't think anybody knows and can predict how dramatic a difference the existing flood maps are gonna be when they get revised and issued in July. But if you were putting a proposal in, and this legislation would apply, so between now and July, it would be a very difficult call if there's a dramatic change with the federal maps, which we have no control over. But
Right.
after July, hopefully there'll be some stability. But
My
it's a good question.
wonderful new neighbor Joan, her house is caving in. She has to do something soon. She can't sit till July and watch her house fall apart and not know what level to put it at.
Yeah.
Like, no one has answers for that?
I would, obviously you've been in great touch with FEMA. I would be in touch with FEMA. I spent my own afternoon down in
She
Linden.
is,
Trust me.
Yeah, I know.
Can I also say, if I sounded disrespectful, I don't mean to be
No.
before, because I'm actually really scared. Even at things the way they are without them changing it. And I'm looking at that 8 foot, and I know that, we have root cellars. I'm thinking, maybe I should just stop paying my mortgage. I mean, it's a horrible position to be in.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's awful. And the worst is, FEMA's continuing to make even the insurance that we're all going to qualify for a moving target, based upon what mitigation efforts we take or don't take.
In defense of FEMA, they can't really predict with 100% accuracy. You know, we have this new inlet, right, a new hole in Fire Island. That's gonna make the tides in the bay higher. It's gonna give us more fish and stuff like that, but, you know, next year we'll get another hurricane, cuts another hole through Fire Island. It's gonna change it. It's a moving target. So, I mean, the best advice that anybody can give you is take the current FEMA map, build a couple of feet above it, and hope for the best. I mean, if we ever got a Category 5 storm that hit Fire Island, it's gonna go up to Sunrise Highway, okay? I mean, it's, with the whole village is gonna be flooded. If we ever get a Category 5, that's a direct hit on our village. We're all underwater, everybody.
Well, I actually bought the house that was built in 1880, predicated on, the house has been here since 1880, what could possibly happen?
That'd be a hurricane or two between now and then.
The real nasty was 1938.
38.
Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn?
Oh, thanks, sure.
All in favor?
Yeah.